Welcome to Hamim Loyal. This is Eric Grissom.
And I'm Dan Johnson. Eric and I will be rewatching the iconic Twin Peaks from the pilot through the return and everything in between.
If this is your first time watching, or if you're a longtime fan, you can watch along with us as we dive deep into the strange and wonderful world of Twin Peaks.
We live inside a dream.
Today on Meanwhile, we are fresh off 6 hours of Fire Walk With Me. I feel like there's blood coming out of my eyes. There's music coming out of my ears. Yeah, we launched, the way we're recording it, we just put up the missing pieces today, over 2 hours. And then we have it came out to be roughly like 5 hours and 59 minutes and 50 seconds. Like if I had just done a little bit more heavy breathing, I could have crossed the 6 hour line or whatever it's a lot. We did a lot of Fire Walk With Me. And so if Fire Walk With Me is Twin Peaks without Mark Frost, today it is Twin Peaks without David Lynch.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, Dan,
Eric,
did you know that if you needed a gift for a friend,
I do,
or for a loved one, or for yourself, treat yourself, Dan, you can get I Know Catherine the Log Lady through a link on our website, and you're going to get $5 off. That sounds like great news. You know, it's not the only great news. You get $5 off, and then we get $5, and then we put that $5 and we donate it to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in honor of Miss Coulson. So everybody wins.
That's fantastic.
Who's losing in that situation? You get a good movie. You get a little bit of a discount. We're donating money to the arts because I can think of nothing else better than people performing or making things or doing something before this freaking planet explodes in a big, crumbling, flaming wreckage of sadness.
And how was your day? Eric's here to uplift everybody. No, but it's great news. I'm so glad that we're able to provide that discount to you and can pass that money right along to the arts and people who need it. I think that's fantastic.
We were asked as to be curators, so they've reached out to a number of podcasts, different Twin Peaks people. So you're going to see, if you're following other podcasts, they're going to have their own code. Our code is Meanwhile. Yes, you know, wherever you go, it's a movie that's great. It's worth watching. But you know that because I talked about it already, and I interviewed Mr. Richard Green, and that was fun. But we're not here to talk about Richard Green. We're not here to talk about Catherine Coulson, although we'll touch on Catherine Coulson. We're here to talk about the secret history of Twin Peaks. Dan.
That's a big book, Eric.
Yeah, you could take a guy out with one of these. You could pull like a Leland Palmer sneaking up on Jacoby in Eastern Park and just go to town on that guy. You'd be smelling a lot more than scorched engine oil. No, The Secret History of Twin Peaks. This is by series co-creator Mark Frost.
Yep.
This is the 4th official Twin Peaks book, following, of course, 1990's release of The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer by Jennifer Lynch, 1991's The Autobiography of FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, My Life, My Tapes by Scott Frost, and Welcome to Twin Peaks, An Access Guide to the Town by Mr. Richard Saul Werman and others. Published, Dan, October 18th, 2016. Roughly a few months, I guess, or several months ahead of the release of The Return, which would come the year in 2017. It features some connecting characters. So particularly FBI Special Agent Tamara Preston, who is our, I guess, spoilers. You know that. We're going to spoil everything. So I'm going to spoil the identity of the special agent that is tasked with figuring out the identity of the archivist.
But just don't tell us who the archivist is, okay? Don't ruin it.
Right. So, but it's weird because even the special agent was a mystery.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. We'll cover all that. In addition to the beautiful hardcover volume tome that I'm holding, an audiobook was also released, featuring many of the original cast as well as future cast members we will see in the return, and it was released at the same time.
Folks, do yourself a favor. If you've followed us this long and you love Twin Peaks but you haven't read this book, splurge and get save that $5 that you're going to save when you buy the I Know the Log Lady. Put that towards the audiobook as well. It is so well produced. The book, I would say get both, because the book is a piece of art. This is so beautifully done. The conceit behind this being a dossier with all the papers and memorabilia, scrapbook sort of thing in there, different types of writing, it's beautifully done. But the voice acting and the production of the audiobook, I was reading and listening together. It was as though it was reading to me in bed at night. It was great. But to have both of those together, just fantastic. You absolutely need to do yourself a favor and do both at the same time. It's terrific.
Treat yourself. Yeah.
Treat yourself.
And of the people in that audiobook, the cast includes Mr. Mark Frost, who plays Dr. Dan Hayward, Dr. Will Hayward, his father, as well as Cyril Pons, who is the news reporter. He's going to be in the return, but we remember him from Twin Peaks.
I'm standing just in front of where a massive log storage area of the Packard sawmill burned to the ground under what fire department investigators are calling mysterious circumstances.
He was they would cut to a reporter on the scene, like when they're at the train car, the footage when Shelley's watching the news and you see the reporter.
I remember the reporter, but I didn't know he even had a name and that he was in this book. That slipped by me. That's fantastic.
Michael Horse plays Chief Joseph and Hawk. David Patrick Kelly, he plays Gordon Cole, Meriwether Lewis, Major James Neely, Colonel Nelson Miles, Kenneth Arnold, and Paul Lance. He does not play Jerry Horn, but I'll take David Patrick Kelly however I can get him. Robert Nepper, he's going to play Captain Charles Eskin Wood, Douglas Milford. Jackie Gleason. Now, Robert Nepper, will appear as Rodney, one half of the Mitchum brothers, when we get to the return.
Oh, fantastic.
A pair of brothers. I'm a fan of the pairs of brothers that they put in Twin Peaks. So both the Mitchums and the Horns. Kyle MacLachlan is here as Cooper and Truman. James Morrison is the archivist in Briggs. He is also in the return, so you'll see him as Warden Dwight Murphy. Chris Mulkey is going to play, of course, Hank Jennings, but also Captain William Clark, Jennifer Oliver Howard, and L. Ron Hubbard. So if you didn't think L. Ron Hubbard was going to make an appearance in this book, he does.
He does.
Amy Shields plays Audrey Horne, Norma Jennings, and Margaret Lanterman. Amy Shields will also appear in the return as Candy, so we'll see her again. Russ Tamblyn is Dr. Jacoby, of course, and Annie Wershing plays Special Agent Tamara Preston. Surprise. You don't find that out until the end. She also played Tess in the Last of Us video game, so if you recognize that voice...
Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess!
And you've played The Last of Us, then that's where you know her from.
She's wonderful in this.
As Dan was saying, this book is an epistolary novel, meaning that it's told through a collection of documents, journal entries, letters, etc. The packaging is beautiful.
But by the way, someone got a word of the day calendar for his birthday, apparently. That's a good word.
Many times Mark Frost would do interviews, and he always said,
we should talk right away about the format. I'm going to try to show this to the camera because it says, as you can see here, novel on the cover, but there's kind of a concept behind this. This is more of a scrapbook or an archive.
It's a very visual book. It's what you would really call an epistolary novel in that it's comprised largely of documents, found documents. And then we decided, well, we may as well go ahead and create the documents. So it was quite a labor to put all that together, and I think for people who don't know Twin Peaks, they'll really dig it, and for those who do, it's going to be really a good homecoming.
And the concept here...
That is why I'm coming to the table with that correct wordage. You can do a tip of the hat to Mr. Mark Frost.
I have an English degree, and I never would have pulled that one out of my back pocket.
The packaging is absolutely beautiful, though. I mean, the voice acting is great.
Wonderful.
But for my money, if you had to pick one, you have to get it in print. You have to look at it. That's some of my favorite things about this book are the physical nature of it. And plus, there's secrets in the book that are only available in the physical form, as far as I know. I mean, I've listened to the audiobook, but there's certain things we're going to talk about where you have to do something with the book to reveal it. So
I have no
without
idea what
further
you're talking
ado, I
about.
will. What's that?
I said I have no idea what you're talking about, though.
that'll be
So I'm
exciting.
excited. Okay.
So to begin this, I'm going to start with a quote. The difference between mystery and secrets.
Mysteries precede humankind, envelop us, and draw us forward into exploration and wonder. Secrets are the work of humankind, a covert and often insidious way to gather, withhold, or impose power. Do not confuse the pursuit of one with the manipulation of the other.
This, my friends, is a book of secrets. Okay, so I guess we're just going to, we're going to give some general feelings of the book, I guess. So you can start it off, Dan, with your...
Well, I was actually going to ask you, since you
Okay.
were the big Twin Peaks fan through and through from the very beginning, as we've discussed, sitting there
Yep.
every night, no matter what day of the week they switched the show to, watching it, waiting.
Yes.
When you saw this book was coming out, how excited did you get?
Oh, I was very excited. I was, again, because it was, what a time you were going to get. You had just gotten the Blu-ray, and you had the missing pieces, and you knew the show was coming. The return was coming. So it was like, it was like Twin Peaks was back in the air. I mean, 2016 was a horrible year.
Horrible
So
year.
a lot of terrible things happened. You know, David Bowie had passed away that year. Many people. I feel like 2016 was like the same year Prince died. I think George Michael died that year. Like there was just a number of deaths. Then there was a 2016 election for people in the States, was depending on which side of the bread you butter yourself on. So it was dark. It was like, so this was like, oh, this is good. Like there's this thing coming. And so I was very excited, and I got it, and I didn't really like it.
I
we'll
bet.
get to that.
Okay.
I'm not a huge. I have to be careful with how I put it because I don't want to be super negative.
Mm-hmm.
But
But I hated it. What a piece of...
no. Well, we'll get to it. There's stuff that we're going to talk about when we get into this that maybe there's a story reason, because the final dossier is going to come after the show that kind of speaks to why there's so many things wrong in the book that are not how it happened in the show. And so that immediately was like, I'm like, when we get to the part about the Packard file and you're going into in that section, there's like all the stuff about Norma and Ed. It's like, that's not what happened. Like, but we'll talk about that because I think it's worth discussing that separately. So I would just get to these things and be like, this isn't the characters this is not how this is how I imagine people that watch Fire Walk with Me that were more on maybe the funny, quirky side were like, this isn't my Twin Peaks. That's my reaction when I read, like, as far as like the Lynch-Frost dynamic, I am more on the David Lynch side of things. And that's nothing against Mark Frost. I love Mark Frost's work, but the things that I'm most interested in are the emotional, intuitive Laura Palmer saga. This stuff is so grounded in conspiracy, and there's so much stuff about like Dwayne Milford, who of course I remember the character. Why would you write a book? Why would you pick him as your character? But we'll get to all of that. So So the first time I read it, to be honest, I was a little
disappointed. Maybe
it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah,
but I am so impressed with the design of this book. Is beautiful. So as a thing to own, it's beautifully put together. The detail on the book design is just fantastic, and It's hard to read sometimes, but we'll go. Dan, what's your thoughts? Since my thoughts initially were negative, and we'll cover that stuff, what is your take? Because maybe you're the opposite.
Well, so when the book came out and the show was going to be coming back again, I hadn't watched Twin Peaks since that initial time I watched it, as we talked about. I didn't really remember anything. And did I go back and rewatch the show before reading this book? No, I did not. So none of it really made sense to me. It was a fine read, but I didn't remember really who Andrew Packard was. So when we're talking about, his scouting adventures and things that happen, completely washed over me. That's interesting. Made no connections. I just had no context. And it was just, oh, this is a cool UFO story, basically, with a whole bunch of historical fiction in the beginning. So this time through, so much more interesting because I was really able to be like, oh yeah, I see how the things connect and I know all the characters, and just, obviously having discussed this with you for months now, it just made a lot more sense. So I do everything wrong. I watched Twin Peaks Fire Walk with me before watching the show. I didn't go back and rewatch the show before I read the book. Absolutely insane the way I chose to do this wrong. Cannot agree with you more about what a beautiful object this book is. I do have one problem, and you kind of hinted at this. I'm almost 50 years old. There are some contrast issues in this book. If I'm trying to read this in bed at night, I have to have a light directly on it, or otherwise I can't read the red on cream margin notes from TP throughout. So that just made it very hard. Of course, I'm listening to it the whole time, so it doesn't really matter. But, so there's just some interesting choices like that throughout. But God, you really can't fault it for any of the way that it collects these pieces of documentary evidence throughout, the photographs, just the layout and spread of some of these pages. It's absolutely stunning. Fantastic book. But again, reading this book and reading through it this time with more context than I had the first time, it's still surprising how, like you said, this is just grounded in a completely different way than the show is. This is very much conspiracies, UFOs, and in a way, not that it's not in the show. We have the Listening Post Alpha. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, in the book it is. I don't think they ever refer to it as that.
I don't know if they ever say, but we have the listening for transmissions from space that also point into Ghostwood. We have all that. So there are these elements to it. We have Project Blue Book, but we don't really know what it is in the show or in the movie. But here it is all aliens. It was such a strange. It felt like such a strange choice to me. But I think that's fine. When we say aliens, are they actually aliens or interdimensional beings? How is that different than spirits? I mean, all these things can be open to interpretation, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it is one thing or another. It's just the way that people are viewing that. So it's really not that bad, but it is a strange way to collect this. Starting off with Merriweather and Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, Merriweather, Lewis and Clark, right?
I was going to say Merriweather and Clark, but that wasn't right. Starting off with Lewis and Clark and going across the country and all of that was also that's not what I expected when I started reading the book as well. But again, I didn't really have all the context. So this time through, so much better. Really enjoyed it. All the occult things too with Aleister Crowley, the L. Ron Hubbard stuff, really fascinating too. So can't wait to talk about that as well. But my overall impressions, what a story. Really cool. I know that we're going to talk about the discrepancies, the way that there are differences between this and what's been established on the show and movies. And I think that's really an interesting kind of way to look at this as well. Unreliable narrators or all the other theories that people have about this too. So yeah, that's my overall impression.
You said you didn't watch the show, but I don't think it really matters if you watch the show because it's essentially like 2/3 UFO conspiracy stuff that's been in sort of the zeitgeist of conspiracy people forever. I mean, you've got like Jack Parsons stuff. You've got all of, the L. Ron Hubbard. Like you've got all of this Men in Black like that has nothing to do with Twin Peaks. No. And in the middle of the novel, there's like essentially this like, let's go back to Twin Peaks and talk about some of these characters before we go back out. So it doesn't really matter all that much.
Though that section, which was probably the thing that a lot of fans were coming to it for, meant very little to me because I couldn't recall a lot of it. And,
and maybe that helped. I feel like that would help because if you were me, you're getting to it and you're like, okay, all right. So we're talking about Lewis and Clark. Okay, cool. And then all of a sudden you're like, Dwayne Milford, the brother of the mayor who married Lana. Like,
fantastic choice. I love that it was Dwayne Milford. I love it.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, why that character? Like, why not just have the whole book about Briggs? Like, I don't know. I it did not work for me. The Dwayne Milford thing is so like far afield from where that character is. He's just such an oddball character that appears in the beginning of the worst parts of season 2.
Yeah.
The times that we see him, he's just fighting with his brother. We know he runs the paper.
Mhm.
And it's like, why are we picking him? And the way he talks is like not at all. And so we're going to get to all this stuff when we get to all this stuff. But like, he's like this mastermind who's actually working with Briggs, and the stuff about Gordon Cole is also knows him, and all this stuff with like smoking cigarettes and drinking scotch and being like, I saw they got a gray and from the mess hall and whatever. And then it's like the same guy that keeps getting married in Twin Peaks to Lana.
I think it's fantastic.
Okay, that's fine. That's totally valid. For me, it was like, why are we grounding to this of all the characters? Just make it about Major Briggs. You have the most interesting character in the world of Twin Peaks in the form of Major Briggs. And he's a huge part of this. Obviously, he's the archivist.
Well, it's going to say.
Or is he? Well, we're going to talk about that.
Oh, is he? Wow, I didn't know that was a question mark.
Sure. Well, I mean, let's get into it. So let's talk about the story a bit. And I'll jump to that question since it just came up and it's interesting.
Fantastic.
So the book was discovered at an active crime scene in a carbon steel lockbox, dimensions 17 inches by 11 inches by 3 inches, custom-made metal box with a triple lock. Green is its color. The identity of the agent analyzing it and the author of the dossier make up something of a mystery that is placed in this. So you have two mysteries. You're not sure who the agent is because her name is redacted, and you're not sure who the archivist is, and it's up to the agent to figure out who the archivist is, and hopefully the archivist doesn't at some point just say their name to sort of make that clear. But yeah, so my question isn't necessarily who wrote the dossier. I think certainly it's Briggs, but is he the only person that wrote the dossier? Is there somebody messing with the dossier that is changing things?
Oh, tell me why.
Okay, so like the central mystery of the novel is the identity of the archivist.
Sure.
I talked about it, task given to whatever. By the end of it, you're like, hey, it's me, Major Briggs, this whole time.
He really does kind of like wave a flag at the end, like, hey, everybody.
Yes. So here's the laundry list of things about the book that are wrong. And when I say wrong, meaning they contradict story bits that we're told in the show. There's a couple of times I'll say, okay, this is different than what was in one of the books, but I think you have to look at the books as saying that's sort of outside of the main canon anyway, because we've already talked about Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, where Donna and Maddie know each other, but in the show they're meeting for the first time. So we'll leave most of the book inconsistencies out, just dealing with the show. So like, whatever. Truman's dad is said to be a cop, but in the Access Guide, he's a mill worker. Whatever. We're going to throw that one. We're going to say it's an easy one. We're going to throw that away. When discussing the wedding of Catherine and Pete, Pete is described as playing checkers and not chess, despite the dedication that the show takes to say Pete is a grandmaster. And that goes through many books. It's not just the show.
But that's just a turn of phrase. I found that just to be a very funny. That was just a funny thing to throw in there because he is so clearly such a essential part of the plot to so many episodes. To throw that in and say that he's playing checkers and not chess,
fine. Throw that one out. Say this is a weird meta joke. It seems odd to me that you would say that he's not someone that would play chess when he is brought into a chess game.
It literally made me laugh out loud.
Okay, fine. We'll let that one go.
It made me laugh out. I thought that was great. I think it was good.
We can vote on. We can let all these go.
Leave that one out.
There's some you cannot let go, but we will let a lot of these go.
Okay.
In the Bookhouse case file on Andrew Packard, it is said that Pete taught Josie English, and we know it was Laura. That's a big part of the show, as well as being in the diary.
I will just say, I mean, we'll do he said. On that side, Laura was the one teaching her English, as in taking lessons. Pete, she was living with Pete and Catherine. So I'm assuming through this time he was teaching her English, even though we find out that Josie was completely fluent and was not, did not need English lessons.
And that's what it says in the book. It says that he taught her English and she immediately picked it up and she was fluent and they couldn't believe it.
So they leave. So it's not that. Okay. Your point is they leave out Laura giving her English lessons, which fair point. Totally.
But they say that, right. They say the English lessons were taught by Pete and she picked it up right away and how amazing it is. We're going to get to a point where I'm going to say there could be 3 options to why these things are.
Okay.
So if listeners are already pulling their hair out and going, well, that's because blank. Well, okay, we'll get there.
Okay.
So Josie's backstory has her as the daughter of a famous prostitute in the book and a high-ranking member of a crime family. She's not, as we're told in the show, a girl sold off by her family to Eckert. In this book, she goes to boarding school. She runs a drug empire. She's a millionaire, and then she kills her dad, and the triad turns against her. Now, that story could be the real story.
Mm-hmm.
And that we were lied to in the show as part of all of these lies. Okay.
That's how I read it, but okay.
Yeah. Maybe not. But again, what did I say about this book? It's a book of secrets, and secrets are meant to deceive. So I'm saying most of this book is a lie. But yes, so fine. I'll give that to you and say, okay, I prefer the story we get in the show to this one. If we had to pick one, but sure.
Tell me why.
I think it's so much more interesting that she was poor and her own family sold her, and then she's sold to a guy that's her guardian, and then he becomes her love. There's so much more compassion and empathy and understanding as to she's not just a villain who's like selling drugs in school and then trying to kill her dad. Like every part of the Josie in here is just like dime store villain. You know what I mean? It's like a empty, hollow character. I prefer the version we get.
Totally. I agree with you totally. I prefer the version of Josie in the show, but that's mostly because I want Josie to be better than she actually is. I want the Harry and Josie love story that never could be. So I will delude myself into thinking she's not quite as manipulative, planning, plotting, devious, metaphorical mustache twirling as she is in this book. She is through and through planning from birth through her death of how can she take advantage of people throughout. She's just kind of evil through and through. In the show, she's a little bit more a victim of circumstance as well. And so I like that bit better.
Right. I'm not saying you lose any of that in the show either. It's just, to me, it's a better story. It's a more interesting story than this story.
I think it's a fine story. I just like the character better in the show, but okay.
All right. Cooper writes that Hank worked for Jean Renault, yet in the show he doesn't know him when they first meet. He pulls his wallet. He's got the prosecutor badge because he stole it, the double R. Oh my God, he doesn't know him, and then he ends up working with him. It's different here. Yeah. The entire Norma and Ed backstory has been completely changed in this version. It's not the wonderful version of the story that we get. Literally, Ed shoots her eye out while he's hunting with someone else because she's like following him in the woods, as opposed to them shooting together and listening to the buckshot roll across the hills. Is that wonderful speech that Ed gives. So that's a whole other thing. And the entire Norma Hank thing, he's in Vietnam in this, and there's letters being taken. It's not the same. So that's been completely changed.
So the only part that I really got, and I'm sorry, listeners who are much more observant than I am, I just kind of let stories wash over me without picking up some of the details like this. The part that really stood out was how Nadine lost her eye and all the things that led up to that. Like that characterization of that relationship between Ed and Nadine felt substantially changed. What was changed between Norma and Ed so much?
Norma goes out with Hank for a weekend because they get into a fight, and Ed gets drunk and gets mad and goes out and has a weekend with Nadine and marries her. And then he's gonna get an annulment on the Monday. Hell, he says Norma didn't even sleep with Hank.
Right.
And then he shoots her eye out, and then he gets stuck, and he breaks Norma's heart because he did this whole thing. It's not that he went away to war and that he was writing her letters and she wasn't writing no letters, and then all of that stuff.
I
We're gonna
liked
get
all of
the
that.
bigger Norma one is the fact that her mom is literally dead in this, and she's not the Vivian that we've come to know. That's MT Went.
Right.
You will find out that will get addressed in the final dossier.
Okay. Which I have not read, so.
Which, whatever. I really don't like this version of the things as much. I prefer maybe and again, that's me having watched the show, and that's the way I remember the show.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's just different. This is a different Twin Peaks than what we get.
Mm-hmm.
Hawk's voice really doesn't sound like Hawk to me. It sounds like someone who doesn't know Hawk wrote it. And maybe there's a reason for that. Interesting note, too, you find out Hawk was given the name Hawk from Harry's brother, Frank, a character we're going to meet in The Return. And it is something that Hawk doesn't like. It's almost like said as like a racist thing that white people would say when they're trying to be funny but not realizing that it's racist or whatever, which changes a lot of things, as I like to call Hawk Hawk, and I don't like to think about calling Hawk Hawk and then Hawk inside not liking it.
Right.
Doesn't really ring true as much to me. His voice doesn't sound the way he's talking. Some of the stuff that Hawk says in the letters, I don't have my note here. He says something that's almost like just talking about girls in a way that just doesn't seem like the guy that's dating the professor from Brandeis.
After a bottle of 90-proof brain grenades loosened up his tongue, Big Ed confessed he was still carrying a Statue of Liberty-sized torch for Norma. Now, I love the big dumb SOB like a brother, okay? But breathe a word about Norma, and the dude goes in his full-out mope mode like a 12-year-old Girl Scout who lost her cookies. I grabbed him by the shoulders and told him to buck up and stop acting so buku dinky-dow about his stale old stateside sob story. Nobody in our immediate vicinity, and by that I mean the closest 2,000 miles, gave two shits. The statute of limitations had expired on that heartbreak, and there was a surplus of local nookie in our current clique to help his little brain housing unit achieve a permanent state of amnesia vis-a-vis what's-her-name.
Whatever, it's fine. To me, it doesn't seem like Hawk's voice. I don't know if that's grounds for this is a different world.
Sure.
Andy does not sound like Andy either. Andy is using complete sentences and sounds like just a regular cop. He does not sound like the Andy that we're used to. Nadine's age and maiden name are different than in the show. Mm-hmm. So in episode 29, we find out her maiden name is Butler, but in the dossier it's Gertz. Do with that what you will. There's a typo in the book. I don't need to talk about that. It says Jacoby's report on Nadine, he says, repeats glasses with one red polarized lens. Glasses, if you own the physical book, I recommend having a pair of red and blue glasses because you will be able to see some things that you might not normally see. All right, where are we? Cooper's second report on Packard says that Josie killed Jonathan before trying to shoot Cooper, which isn't the order that it happens in the show. Josie shoots Cooper first and then kills Jonathan later. That's something Cooper would know. That's something he would remember, and this is something he's supposedly writing. Mm-hmm. Truman's note to Cooper about Josie's death is written as if Cooper wasn't even there when it happened.
Yeah, that jumped out at me too. That was crazy.
The autopsy for Josie says she weighed 25 pounds. In the show, she weighs 65 pounds. When Andrew is killed a second time, and this is at the bank thing, it is implied that Harry just lets it go. He's like, well, we better just let that thing go. Even though we know there's human remains found the first time, which means when they faked his death the first time, somebody got killed. Somebody's body's there. Is there no justice for that person? Not my Harry, right? I don't think he would just let that thing go. Catherine sells the mill to Ben Horn for $33 million. The date of the sale is March 23rd, 1989. Laura dies on February 23rd, 1989, which, given the timeline, it does not add up, especially if you look at episode 17 and that 3-week delay that they have. Whatever, it's fine. Audrey's letter to her dad does not sound like the Audrey that we know. No. She acts like the bank thing was done to hurt her father and not help him. Right. She does mention the prison, which came up in the access guide, so it was interesting to see that. That was one of the things that Mark Frost looked at was the access guide when he put this book together. All right. So in the book, Ben surrenders in his Civil War period. He does not win the Civil War. So that's a yes. Yeah. So he surrenders.
Did I just, I guess I just like heard what I thought it said instead of like what it, or read what I thought it said. I guess I just didn't pay close enough attention to that. That's bonkers. That's nuts. I wonder what that means.
It's a pretty big one. Right. So it's like, that's completely different than the world that we have.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Gordon Cole is said to have known Douglas Milford. And I already talked about how I don't think that matches his character that we see at all. But yet when he goes to Twin Peaks, there's never any connection between the two. Does this imply, this isn't really a thing. I just wrote, does this imply Gordon sent Cooper here on purpose, which.
Well, in the book, it seems to, but yeah, sure.
We'll skip that one. All right. Margaret's tattoo is not the same one as in the show. Like, her story in the show is that when she was 7, she took a walk in the woods, and when she came back, she was told she disappeared for a day. She has a tattoo on her leg of like the 2 twin mountain image, which I believe David Lynch actually drew that on her. I was listening to a QA in which she told that story, so I'm going to say that that's true.
I remember David drawing this little tattoo on my leg, and it was like 2 little peaks, and it was, I think it was when I was abducted by aliens. And there was all this oil with like matted hair. Was that in the show? Is it fun? Is it in the show? Yeah. I haven't seen it for a while. I can hardly wait to go home and watch it. I've got the box set, so I'm going to watch it. And it was the same kind of oily substance that we used in the underneath the radiator in Eraserhead, the lady in the radiator. Oh, it was tar. Oh my God, there's a theme. That's what it is. It's a tar theme.
In the book, it's Briggs's tattoo. It's the 3 triangles. It's not the same as the one in the show. So that's a major difference. In the book, it's also said that she's taken along with Carl Rod and a third man whose name I thought I was going to write down, and I literally wrote Carl Rod and there's nothing there. This guy dies of cancer, I believe. So he's no longer with us. He dies long before the events of this dossier. But
gotta say that I do love seeing Carl Rod deeper into the mythology here, which was very nice to.
Yeah, and I had mentioned when we talked about him that he would be connected to a character that we know, and it is
there you go,
Margaret. Okay, so it is stated that Earl shot Cooper, but Cooper was stabbed by Earl, which makes a big point of talking about stabbing him and the way he stabbed him, and he stabs him in
reverse,
right the same way that he stabbed Caroline, whatever. Pretty big one. Laura is said to be dead at 18, not 17.
She first came to see me the day after her 18th birthday, the point at which she'd be treated as an adult with no legal obligation on my part to inform her parents.
Which a 17-year-old girl is a big dialogue line of many times about her death, but she's 18 in this book, not 17.
Leland, I'm so sorry. 17 years old.
All right, so there's maybe more. That's a pretty exhaustive list. I see 3 options for why this is, all right? Option 1, Mark Frost makes mistakes. He did create a number of these characters and write a number of these scripts. It's possible like they're just unintentional continuity errors. And there's certainly continuity errors all over the place. We talked about them all the time. The towel that Deputy Hawk finds, it's 5 miles down the tracks, and then it's a half mile down the tracks, and then it's found in Glastonbury Ghost. So it doesn't matter. Like, it could just be that these are mistakes or changes because he feels like changing them, and they mean nothing. That is completely valid, and maybe that is the thing.
That's and let's just say also, that could be true as well as some of it. But there's maybe some things that are mistakes and some other things that might be.
Sure.
Although I find it hard when you're writing a book that is so meticulously designed as this one, it just is a little harder to believe that there'd be mistakes like that. When it goes through so many people's hands, it is so beautifully done, seems very painstaking. Not to say it couldn't happen. Obviously, there's typos and things like that, but let's talk about the other options because don't feel as strongly about that one.
So option 2, the world of Twin Peaks has changed. So it has altered. There are different timelines. We've already talked about different timelines. With Fire Walk With Me, we see, Agent Jeffries walking in a hallway alone. We see Cooper standing there with no one there. And then we see them both walking and being at the same place at the same time. There are different timelines, and this is one of them. There's also a blending of Twin Peaks as an idea with the real world. And we see that a little bit in this, in that Margaret Lanterman's maiden name is Coulson, which is Catherine Coulson's maiden name.
Do we ever hear in the show what her maiden name was?
Well, no, she's just Margaret Lanterman. You never
we never hear
find
her
out what
maiden
her
name
name
in
was.
the show.
No.
Okay.
So there is a blend of real world and Twin Peaks. Like, this is an idea of Twin Peaks as like a tulpa created by Mark Frost and David Lynch that I will go into in a lot more detail in The Return.
Great.
It's related to some thoughts I have about that and characters going in and out of the book. So that could be it, that it's literally these things are changed because the universe has changed from maybe the events that we'll see in The Return or whatever. Option 3 is someone else has access to the dossier and they are altering the text. Now, evidence for this, like I don't know if you noticed, and I certainly didn't notice. This is something that I will credit the proper person when the time is right. On page 236 and 237, friends.
Everyone, open your workbooks.
Open your books. There is an interesting double-page spread of a series of books.
Yeah.
On the Bookhouse Boys.
Yep.
The text reads, "Good literature is a mirror through which we see ourselves more clearly." Now, if you were to hold this book up to a mirror, 3 books stand out as they have indicators that are the same backwards as forward. Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, and the number 8. And those books are Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72, picked by Hawke, The Warren Commission Report, picked by Cooper, and Double Indemnity, picked by Hank.
Okay.
The first word in each title spells out Fear the Double, which, of course, we know from episode 29, Cooper's double is in our world pretending to be Cooper. Now, this mirror trick was first discovered by Aaron Mento and detailed in Welcome to Twin Peaks blog, which I will link to. So I did not come up with that little bit of information, but I remember when the book came out, that little bit of information is wonderful. It's like, oh my God,
that's
Fear
amazing.
the Double. And the middle book is Cooper, so you could be like, Fear the Double Cooper. So I believe the person that is altering this book is the double, is Cooper. Now, this is another part that's very strange. Agent Preston identifies 2 typewriters that were used in this dossier. The primary one is the one that the archivist has, which she says is a Corona Super C typewriter from the 1970s. That typewriter does not have a number 1 key. So instead of the 1, you would use a lowercase l, or in the case of this dossier, like a Roman numeral I. That's where every time you see a year, it's like a crossbar Roman numeral I. This was done on old typewriters. It was like a common thing. So that's on page 7, by the way, if you're following along at home, where she determines that. The second typewriter is the one in the Bookhouse, which is a hold on, let me back up. I'll get to that one later. All right. So whenever the 1 is typed, it appears as a Roman numeral 1, except Major Briggs, who we find out as the archivist, says, "Here's my typewriter" on page 343, but that has a 1 key.
It felt so weird that they even called it out in the book. Now that, oh boy, okay.
Right, his faithful thing. Now, in the transcript that follows this revelation, so this is on page, what did I say this was? This was on page 343. In the transcript that follows, assuming that the archivist typed this grant, the text talks about how he had this audio tape that was left for him by Milford, and he types it up. Assuming he's typing on his faithful Corona, it shows a 1. This is the only time, like in the book, where the number 1 is typed. Now, this particular thing, this typewriter matches the typewriter from the Bookhouse. So did Agent Cooper somehow, is Mr. C or whatever, why is this typewriter considered his faithful Corona? If you look at this excerpt here, it does not use the same capital ones. I don't know. Was this photo just of the wrong typewriter? If the transcript of the conversation between Milford and Briggs uses a 1, then it was used by the Corona in the photo, perhaps, his faithful Corona.
Well, I mean...
And Briggs talks about faith in this particular exchange of ideas. Is this thing supposed to be there because we're meant to question everything in the dossier or whether this dossier can be trusted? Because the FBI agent is saying, no, I'm confirming that this was typed with this, and yet there's a big photo of a typewriter that does not meet those requirements. Was it just a mistake? Was it simply just a mistake and Mark Frost liked the look of the typewriter, so he put that typewriter in there, not thinking... It's just there's so much effort to use a specific typewriter with the capital I and then to have a picture where it has the number 1.
That use of the Roman letter I or capital, sorry, the use of the capital I throughout, stood out to me, and I knew that was a thing that people did with typewriters. But when you look at these pages, we have 343, where we have the archivist talking about the listening post alpha revelations, that typeface. And he says at the bottom, without my knowing, Doug recorded our conversation. I found this tape the day after he died, sitting on my desk, blah, blah. I here include the transcript from that point of conversation forward. Next page, facing page, completely different typeface.
Right.
So it is not an accident by any stretch. So in between, we have the photo of the typewriter with the My Faithful Corona that looks to be in the same typeface as the archivist note on the previous page. So 343, 340, 344 is the same typeface. 345, 6, 7, and 8 are this other one entirely. So yeah, it's not a mistake at all.
But even if you take that out, just the fact that the picture of the typewriter that says My Faithful, because it's all about faith, is a typewriter that is not the Corona that we're said that he's typing it on. So it's just those two elements without any of the other things on their own are very strange.
But we have to discount that this was a mistake. This is too thought through to be anything other than completely intentional for you, Eric, specifically to find later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not alone in
I know, and I'm
figuring these things out, so I will not take credit for all of these ideas, although I did spend an awful lot of time looking up typewriters.
I'm sure you did.
To find out, and I'm trying to think in my head, I'm like, okay, well, they talk about the bookhouse always having that typewriter, and it doesn't have the 1 key, and is that what Cooper is using, or the evil Cooper that is out, and because also it says fear a photo taken in the bookhouse that says fear the double is a hidden message, like trying to get that message out because Briggs knows the evil Cooper is in here, and so he's trying to send a message without him knowing. Am I going crazy? Briggs says, I see mysteries as the truth itself, and that they're the essence of our existence, and he underlines essence, and aren't necessarily meant to be fully apprehended, and I feel like that is what we're in the middle of here. Mysteries and truth, and there's a point of saying secrets are used to deceive, and this book is literally the secret history of Twin Peaks. It is not a mystery, it is a secret, which in and of itself is kind of a lie. I also wish that that she discovered that it was Briggs on her own without him coming right out and saying his identity. I mean, granted, it's a huge dossier, so Gordon Cole is literally handing it to them and saying, figure it out. But you could have handed it to me, and I would have said, oh yeah, by the end of it, he says, I'm Briggs. I'm literally Briggs.
Yeah.
And there's also no mention of Earl anywhere. That's not true. They talk about the stabbing, but when we talk about Project Blue Book, when we talk about all of these things that we know Earl was involved in, he doesn't even come up, which I find to be a little odd.
Yeah, it's a huge oversight there.
So anyway, that's it. It's who wrote this? Like, did somebody alter these facts? Or is it a different timeline? Or is it literally Mark Frost hadn't visited the world of Twin Peaks in 25 years and he wanted to write a book and he wrote a book and he didn't care all that much about all the details.
That one strains my ability to believe it. If you're going to do this undertaking and you're preparing, well, at this point, in the midst of the production of The Return, no way to me that that this isn't entirely intentional the whole way through.
Right.
Other than small discrepancies, we can chalk those up however you want to, one way or the other. I'm very...
But the typewriter thing is the thing that I think about, just the fact that it's literally her saying, oh, because of the typeface, he's using this model, and then here's my faithful typewriter, and it has a 1.
And it's completely different. It's a completely different typeface. No, I think this is great. I'm a kind of person that would say, hey, yes, and all these things. It is not contradictory to say that there were someone or someone's messing with the dossier that Briggs wrote, or that it wasn't Briggs at all, or what have you. So the unreliable narrator or different narrators, or that we're being lied to, totally possible. And it doesn't contradict the fact that it could be changes to the timeline or a different version of Twin Peaks. These things could all be consistent with each other and not contradictory. I think it's great.
And having seen The Return and knowing that I think he wrote this right after The Return, there's certainly a lot of stuff that points towards timelines changing, things blipping in and out and changing slightly, or, so who knows? Just the fact that she's 18, Laura's 18, like, of all the things to get wrong, 17-year-old girl, like, I know before they did The Return, they watched the pilot together, David Lynch and Mark Frost. Like, you're going to remember that.
Well, I can't imagine that's the only research they did on the show, was like, oh, let's just go sit down and we'll watch the pilot and the finale, and that's it, and let's just go run.
Well, they did for The Return. They only watched the pilot, and that's all David Lynch watched, was like the pilot and the last episode.
That's totally fair. That's not to say he didn't do any other research. That's what he sat down to watch to get back into headspace.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean he didn't have his notes from what he was doing as he was putting the show together. I'm saying we don't know that. So I would be very surprised with someone who so clearly loves this world that he built, that he's not going to be completely invested in getting these things, getting back into that headspace again. So it'd be very surprising to me if that was actually the case.
Hello, friends. Even though last time we had talked, I made a big to-do that we were going to do this live. It was going to be a live reading, and Dan and I, we could say the names of the Black Lodge members. Well, I forgot because we were talking about the secret history, as you're listening to now. We just never did it, so it'll have to wait till next time. So you don't get Dan, you're going to get me, here to thank the wonderful Black Lodge supporters who helped us out in the very end of 2025. I'm, of course, talking about Chuck Suffel, and Gregory Flanagan, and Dawn Adamo, and Banjo Track, and Eric Knopp, and Charlie Tapper, and Jake Jagello, and Matthew Fuller, and David Melito. Thank you all for supporting our show and keeping us going. If you want to join them in the Black Lodge, you can head over to our Patreon, where we have many tiers. The Black Lodge tier is where you get your name, but the other tiers are there, and you've got access to additional podcasts and movie reviews and all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of stuff. So yeah, let's get back to the secret history of Twin Peaks and get ready for our return to The Return. All right, so jumping off that, I have some other things to talk about, I guess. A couple of things. I don't know if you have anything you want to jump in on. I was going to talk about who actually has the ring, because the ring that is introduced in Fire Walk With Me has now been brought into Mark Frost's world. So we find out the first person to get it is Meriwether Lewis. But I guess before that, it's with Twisted Hair. Although I don't think, does Twisted Hair have it? I can't remember now. Or does he just tell him where to get it?
Didn't Twisted Hair have it? I thought he had it in a pouch. Or did Lewis?
He has it in a pouch, yeah. But I just couldn't remember if it was like, he was like, go to this place in the mountains and find it and just make sure. It doesn't, let's say Twisted Hair has it. So Twisted Hair has it. Then Meriwether Lewis of Lewis and Clark.
Yep.
That whole exchange with Jefferson where Meriwether Lewis writes Jefferson. I think he says in the letter, like, oh, I got this ring.
Hmm.
And then he starts referring to it as it. And the response, Jefferson's like, I don't know exactly what he meant by it. But it's like clearly the ring. He says,
ring, yeah.
I'm talking about the ring, Jefferson. You can write the Declaration of Independence. You can't figure out he's talking about the ring.
Yeah, context clues are hard.
All right. The next person that I have on my list, and if I miss someone, let me know, is Jack
I'll try to remember.
Parsons, who's a very, very interesting person.
So did you know about Jack Parsons, the historical figure, before reading this?
Yes. Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron, who I love, who I highly recommend you find her. She has a wonderful short film you can find on YouTube. I got into like the occult stuff and like looking into that stuff. Fascinating. She's an artist. She is awesome. She makes a picture. There's an appearance in here with a little picture of her. That whole era I find fascinating.
Hey, can you repeat what was her name?
Oh, Marjorie Cameron. Marjorie. I named a witch in this the Dark Sisterhood in the Goblin things. Marjorie after her.
After her.
But she's very cool. You can find, I can't remember the name of her short film, so let me look it up now because I can, in the magic of editing. Oh, it's called The Wormwood Star. So if you go onto YouTube, you can look up The Wormwood Star, which is a short film about the artist and occultist Marjorie Cameron, who makes an appearance in this book. Jack Parsons, brilliant scientist who was out there doing sex magic orgies and all sorts of wild stuff in the desert. All of that stuff plays a big role here, especially like Moonchild and the black and white lodges. And you can see the love of that material that Frost has that fed into the birth of White and Black Lodge that we got in Twin Peaks. So like, he's been into these ideas for a very long time. When they start talking about opening up these gates, that becomes a big part of the return, these portals or vortexes or whatever that are going to be at different parts of the world. Yes.
No, I really wish that I had watched The Return before reading this again, just because I feel like they are in dialogue with each other in a way that I'm missing out on because I don't really.
I think it's better that you didn't, to contradict you, because
great. I'm glad because I can't do it backwards.
This is how you would have been primed for those ideas. Yep. And then it's going to hit you in a way and you'll have a deeper understanding of the return because of this, as opposed to the other way around.
And then coming back to this again with that additional knowledge. So it just means I'm going to get to read this again after we rewatch The Return. Go ahead.
Okay, so the next person is Richard Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Nixon has the ring as he talks with Jackie Gleason. Now, before reading this, I was not familiar with Jackie Gleason being big into the occult, but he was. He was somebody that collected occult books and things like that. So that part is true. There's also a few references to the Honeymooners and the Cramdens. I believe when they're talking about the Martells, they're referred to as more crammed in than somebody else or something. So I guess
that's great.
I'm gonna say that Mark Frost is a fan of the Honeymooners, which was a good show.
But that whole thing with Gleason, he donated that library of occult and UFO materials. He did have he referred to that his house or that room as the spaceship or the mothership. Sorry,
the mothership.
Yeah, that's accurate. They actually did that. I mean, it's amazing and just very cool that is. I don't know how you feel about and you mentioned this a little bit before, the blending of the real world with Twin Peaks together, but like taking all these historical figures, moments in time, and trying to connect them to overall mythology of Twin Peaks. Like, just going off on a tangent here, like, did that strike you as something that you liked, or do you feel ambivalent about it? Do you feel like Twin Peaks is its own thing that's insular and ought to be? Because when we watch the show, you really never leave Twin Peaks itself, other than going to Canada or whatnot. But you're really there the whole time. It's hermetically sealed almost.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit, I think, in past discussions. The Mark Frost taking mystery and tying it to history, but he's done it a little bit here and there throughout the show, where we're with the Dugpas, like the concept of the Dugpas, and like introducing, like we read the episode 29 script, and you've got Glastonbury Grove, and you've got the King Arthur mythology, and that kind of stuff always is definitely the Mark Frost thing. I don't like that in the Twin Peaks universe as much. I think if this book came out and it was the secret history of somewhere else, I'd probably like it a lot more. Like, and I'd be like, oh, this is really cool because this is the kind of book that I would like. This is more like X-Files, you know, zoocryptology or zoocryptology. That's not right. But that kind of vibe off of this. Then I like with my Twin Peaks thing to feel like nothing I've ever felt or experienced before, and to be a pure connection between me and like emotional creativity, whatever, new ideas that I have not thought of before, and not necessarily something that's so grounded in historical, you know, years of magic. And that stuff's interesting. And I think the alchemy between the two, when it's Lynch interpreting those ideas and going in different ways, is more interesting than when it's just. So some of this stuff I find a little like tedious, where especially in the beginning, like we were getting into like all this historical stuff, and then like, and all of it's true, and so it's like interesting. It just doesn't feel like Twin Peaks to me. And in that sense, I don't like it as much because it's different, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking. Yeah.
So then after that, it's only like really those three people. And then it's like people we know: Teresa Banks, Laura Palmer, Andy Blackburn, the nurse that we saw at the end of Missing Pieces gets the ring. Did I miss anyone?
Not that we see so far, no.
Okay. That's all I have for like the ring as far as who gets it. But then like there's the greater idea of the old world and indigenous people, and these concepts of the owl cave and the lodges and the ring, and how all these things work together. Like there's many talk of, I think it's with Chief Joseph, of this tribe of white Indians, these race of giants. There's lots of talk about the giants, that they're men between 7 and 9 feet tall. We get our first mention, I believe, of Owl Cave from Denver Bob Hobbs, right? And the petroglyph, yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. I would just
white
say
people finding it, I should say.
The 7 to 9 feet tall giants. They do make a reference to like. Don't they make a reference to it being their bodies being hidden in the Smithsonian or something like that? In the book?
Maybe, I don't remember.
Well, I'll just say one of my cousins. She's worked at the Smithsonian for about 35 years now, and she says regularly people still ask about that. That's probably the most asked about question, is to see, can we see the bodies of the 9 feet tall giants? So that's a real, I like that that's a real thing. And it's so funny that I just happened to see her 2 months ago, and she mentioned that to me. So it's like, oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So that's interesting too, as like the concept of the giant, thinking this idea of these giants has been around forever. That was his contribution. And the giant is what we get. Giant, AKA fireman. To come. That's very interesting. The owl, the idea of an owl symbol, we talked about this when we were talking about owls before, that it's also very tied to Bavarian Illuminati. There's lots of connections with that in Glastonbury Grove, and they talk about that place, I can't remember, where all the rich people wear animal masks.
Bohemian Grove, yeah.
Yeah. You get a lot of that stuff. We hear about Andrew Packard has a much bigger role in this mystery as well. You know, when he's a Boy Scout, they see the giant. Andrew sees the giant, and then Doug Milford sees a walking owl, which is just like Laura talked about a walking owl in her diary. So these ideas,
a giant walking owl,
of these giants and these walking owls and all of that stuff, and it's all connected to Owl Cave, which is kind of cool when they talk about the Owl Cave was formed by lava. So in and of itself, it was formed by fire. That created this sort of neat place. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on how, and the ways that the book touched on Black Lodge, White Lodge, giants? No talk of the Man from Another Place or anything like that, but
no,
and not really a lot of Bob stuff.
None,
right?
Just a reference that Laura Jacoby's references to Bob. But that's it through Laura. But yeah, nothing.
Yeah. Not a lot of Laura Palmer either. Not really. I mean, you talk a little bit about that. I guess we should talk about, like, I don't know if I really got an impression of your thoughts on the big changes to characters. Like Audrey, like Norma and Ed, or like, did it affect you in any way? Do you prefer these versions to some of that stuff, or how do you square that?
No, so some of them did not jump out to me as strongly as they did for you, but some of them felt wrong. I felt similarly about Hawk. The writings of Hawk that was in the was the journal that was found in the book house, right? That's where this was Hawk's writings were from, and it also it didn't quite feel right to me. The Cooper ones felt fine. Audrey with everything in the bank vault felt similarly like that. That's not why she was there. It felt like Audrey from half a season before then, when she was still trying to deal with everything with her father, and that was not what was happening there. Nadine, Norma, Ed. It was more for me about the Nadine and Ed part than it was. I just didn't jump out to me as much with the Norma and Ed relationship. Everything with the letters, and I guess I was just really taken by that story of it. How devious Hank was, how he was plotting through all of this to steal the letters from her, and I was kind of just taken with that story. It didn't really stand out to me as like, that's not the story that I don't have as much of a connection in that way as you do, and I really don't mind that version of it, honestly. It's much more star-crossed, but with that person who is actively keeping them apart. I actually kind of enjoyed that story. So, do I prefer one versus the other? Not really.
Yeah, for me, it removes the guilt prison that Ed lives in, because in the version that we get in the show, it's his own hot-headedness that takes Nadine out and goes and gets drunk and gets married and ruins his life, versus I'm just a sad sack that's like, everything's happening around me. The reason I'm not talking to Norma is because some other force is interfering, not my own bullshit.
Oh, I see that a little bit differently. I see what you're saying.
Right. His whole thing is he didn't tell her he loved her, and then he goes to Vietnam, and he's still writing her.
Yes.
But he's like divorced of the really owning up your own bullshit that caused all this, which is and then the fact that he shoots her eye out while they're doing the thing, and not her. Like, every chance that he has of being like having agency to have created this problem, even when he shoots her eye out, it's because she's wandering and following him.
Right.
Not that he's fucks up and shoots her eye out by accident. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a difference in both of those things.
Although I still say it's keeping with his character that he just couldn't find the words to tell Norma how he felt, that he, even when she wasn't replying to his letters, then he comes back to Twin Peaks and avoids her for a year.
Sure.
Yeah. So, like, yes, she's not owning up to his bullshit, but I don't think it's completely different or out of character for him. So it doesn't feel like a different character to me. It doesn't feel wrong that this couldn't be the case. Maybe it's just a different aspect of Ed. And, I gotta say, I really hate the prison of guilt that he's putting himself in.
Okay.
Having to feel that he owes this to Nadine, that he made a mistake, and that now he has to live with that consequence, and he is tying himself to her when he absolutely doesn't have to. And in this version of the story, it's more internal, that he's just unable to bring himself, or maybe he doesn't even recognize in himself how to express his feelings. That he can't actually come to it.
Right. To me, it's just not necessarily that it's against his character. It's just I prefer.
No, I got what you're saying. Yeah.
The character dynamic of him being the reason why this thing happened and having to live with that. To me, it's more of an interesting thing.
Deciding to live with it, or deciding not to do anything about it. Just choosing that, okay, I guess I'm going to be with Nadine for the rest of my life.
It's more like a bad luck vibe. Like, they even talk about like they're constantly getting in accidents.
That's true. Yes.
It's like how many days since a Hurley accident or whatever.
Right. That's true.
The Audrey thing also in the letter never mentions Laura, the fact that all that stuff happened at One-Eye Jack's. She comes across as if it's like none of that stuff happened. And that was the thing about the we'll revisit this when we do the return, but the age on Laura, I was like, oh, okay. Like it's almost as if like the events of Laura Palmer's death never happened. And like, what would the town have been like? That would mean that Audrey never would have been in One-Eye Jack's. So she never would have figured out her dad was doing what he was doing. And maybe she would have wrote a letter like that to him.
Wait, say that again. So,
but that didn't happen. So I don't want to say that that's going to happen because that doesn't happen in this book. Because they clearly say Laura died at 18, but
well, no, yeah, but I think your point is still an interesting one to say. What if she died at 18 instead of 17? What if she died at a different time? Things just change.
That would be interesting
to some extent. I know. Well, the dates are all kind of a little out of whack anyway, right? Yeah.
If they had said like Laura died at 20 in 1991,
right,
then you would be like, oh, okay, like something shifted in the timeline. And Laura's death got moved, and these events happened before. And how would the town have been? What would Twin Peaks, the town?
The domino effect of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where you almost think it's that, but there's not enough.
But it doesn't line up that way, right? It's not as neat as that. There are date discrepancies, but it doesn't all line up neatly to make it a coherent. Yeah.
Right. The Audrey thing, she just comes across as like, F you, Dad, I'm doing this because you don't want me to do it, which is totally different.
Yeah.
And also, again, doesn't mention the fact that a few weeks before, or, she would have seen him in One-Eye Jack's.
I think Mark Frost just never saw the second season of Twin Peaks.
I mean, it's possible. He did go away, so.
I mean, a lot of people stopped watching, so he might have been one of them.
Some random notes. I don't have that much left to say about the book, but some random things. More time is spent on Lana than Laura Palmer, which I think I had a problem with.
That is absolutely true.
We find out she dates Trump, which I thought was just like so...
Well, they don't say it.
Well,
it's just a strangely coiffured real estate mogul. Yes, for sure.
And this book is rolling out right at the election, his first election.
That's right.
Cooper visits Briggs on March 20th, 1989, and Briggs realizes something's wrong and writes Mayday, which is what Gordon says in The Missing Pieces right before Philip Jeffries disappears.
Yeah.
So
I love that moment at the end of you don't see Briggs and Cooper's, the bad Cooper coming out of the lodge. You don't see them meeting, but then that moment afterwards of something is wrong, it just gave me chills. It was great because we had just seen all of this together. Yeah. So that was very cool.
And we know that this was found at a crime scene as well. The crime scene is still under investigation. We don't know the details of that crime scene, but we know it was found out at a crime scene. So we'll see how that plays out in the return. I mentioned red and blue glasses. So you do learn the red and blue thing is a Jacoby thing. And he has, that's another thing that I didn't love about this, is like, it's like a small town Jacoby and a small town Ben, and that stuff on its own is interesting. But then there's like these things where like Jacoby wrote a book and like Jerry Garcia's commenting on the book and like Timothy Leary, like
makes him this bigger figure. Yeah.
Yes. It's like, I want it to be a small town with big people in a small town and not like have him that he had this.
Well, that's Milford for sure. That's exact. Like he is this. Okay. So
anyway, you learn about the red and blue and that it's this whole system that he has and he wish he could use it on Nadine. But if you have red and blue glasses,
which of course you do,
there's a couple of things you could do. You can like cover one eye and then all of Agent Preston's notes disappear and you can cover the other eye and some other things happen. But the one item of note that's very cool is the picture of Leland.
Which you can see it really without.
You can tell. And I think that is like the only time we see Bob, right? I mean, you get it's a picture of Bob, or is it an owl? I have to look at the
No, this one's Bob coming out of the side of like Leland holding his book. Yep.
So you can just see Leland holding his daughter's photo and then looking with the other eye, then you see Bob, which is kind of cool. There's a couple of other places, I think.
There's another one with the owl as well. There is one with the owl, but it didn't really look like there's much going on in that one. I couldn't quite tell.
But details like that you would not get on the audiobook. So
That's
like
right.
there is a reason to, and obviously the mirror thing, which was very cool. that you wouldn't get otherwise.
I mean, beyond that, just the way that, I mean, just keep saying it, but the way that they quote unquote reproduce the information. So like the photos that are in here, the handwritten
It's wonderful.
pages, the
Newspaper
reproductions
clippings
of the newspaper of Twin Peaks
Yeah.
Gazette. Sort of like, oh, is that really, really beautiful.
It is really cool. And again, it's a big book. The next book that he's going to write, which happens after the comes out after The Return, is half the size, but it's almost exclusively town stuff. And so if you were like me, and I think I preferred the second book to this book because it was more people that I was interested in, especially characters you see in The Return. And you want to know how they ended up. And I think there's some stuff on Annie Blackburn in that book as well. So we'll see. We'll do that. I don't know. It's good. I always feel negative. I don't like to say anything negative about it. It's a beautiful piece of work. Certainly worth reading.
Yeah.
Worth
I want to
reading.
go back and say a little bit about the Dwayne Milford part of all this.
Sell me on Dwayne Milford because
it's going to be hard for me to sell you on it, but I liked it much more than you did. I didn't have a strong sense of Dwayne Milford at all from the show, other than, like you said, he owns the newspaper. He and his brother fight. He gets in lots of marriages. People kind of laugh a bit about it because, it's a almost annual event in Twin Peaks when he gets married, big parties. But other than that, there's just nothing to him. So when you say, why him? Well, why not? I don't think it can be Briggs. I don't think it should have been centered on Briggs. Briggs could not be this character.
I think he could have been.
Milford goes on this journey of kind of just being a guy who's just around and happens to be at the right place at the right time. He just happens to be at Roswell when the crash happens. But he is not how do I want to say this? He just, like I said, he starts off as someone who just happens to be there. But as he starts becoming more and more involved with the Majestic 12 and, Project... what was it before?
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the Majestic 12. I'm glad you brought that up. That's another big conspiracy. People have been talking about that for a long time. What is it? Is it real? Did it happen?
What was it before it became? Why can't I?
There's Project Grudge. There was
I can remember Grudge, but what was it before Grudge? Because it turned into Grudge, that's then turned into Gleam or Aquarius, but it was all Majestic 12. But there was a different name for it earlier. Regardless of that,
I'll look it up while you go.
Well, I need to convince you, so you got to give me your undivided here.
Okay.
But anyway, Milford starts becoming more and more of this menacing figure. He's the original Man in Black. He is the person who's going to come and convince you, either by paying you off or threatening you, that you're going to shut up about this. Do you see Briggs being that character?
It doesn't have to be exactly that character, but I feel like Briggs is a character that that's very interesting.
Sure.
He could have had a similar situation to him and his own son, Bobby, where he was kind of a fuck up, and then he finds his way into the military and he finds his way into the world of secrets, and that's why he can see this bright future for Bobby, because he sees himself and his own son and how he made similar mistakes. It would not be the same story. It would be a different story.
It would have to be very different.
You would lose the conceit of the mystery of the archivist, which it's not that interesting to me. The mystery of the archivist wasn't that interesting to me because right away you're like, it has to be Briggs, because it's like we're talking about all this military stuff and they keep saying he's someone in Twin Peaks.
Right.
And then you're like, I guess it's got to be.
Also, if you listen to the audiobook, the voice actor sounds very much like Briggs throughout.
Right.
So it was not much of a surprise.
But I could have threw that part away and just said oh my God, this is Briggs. And then I would probably feel better. And this is my own nostalgia and being a fan.
But this is because this is what you wanted from the book to begin with, though. So this is just tying more into what you wanted.
This is the worst kind of thing. So Mark Frost, if he's listening to this now, I apologize. He's like, you don't want to listen to me. You're not trying to make fans happy. You want to write the art you want to make, and God bless you.
Yeah.
But to me, it would have been like, okay, now you can take me out of Twin Peaks because I'm with a character that I've grown to love and I can see all these interesting things.
You didn't grow to love Dwayne Milford?
I also don't like that character. And I feel like the Lana story is so dumb. They even at one point talk about Lana being an agent that was brought in there to take Dwayne out, and even Briggs is like, I don't know if that's true.
Well, that was a hypothesis of that could have been. Yeah, right.
It's just kind of silly.
They didn't say that was for sure, but it very much could have been.
Some of it's kind of silly. It's a very silly story. So at that point, it could have been anybody. It didn't have to be an existing character. But
no,
it
that's
literally
fair.
could have been anybody.
That's totally fair. So for me, I liked Doug Milford. The backstory, I liked watching his evolution and gaining more and more, insider status throughout all these organizations over time. That's great. What I didn't like is then at the end trying to connect him to the character that we see in the show. That felt very... I don't want to be critical. I've never written a novel, never written a TV show, but it felt slapped together to try to get, for lack of a better phrase. It's just like, how do I reconcile the character that we do see briefly in the show? So just like at the end, he's always been a fool for love, and he keeps like, that's not the character we see of this man in black throughout. Like that just felt tacked on at the end to try to bridge the gap between this character we developed in the novel and that other character that we see in the show. So that part does not work for me very well at all.
Right. So why have any parts that don't work? You could have been Colonel Riley. It could have been freaking it's following Earl. Could have been Earl and Earl's time in Project Blue Book.
That would have been actually incredible had it been Earl. The timing wouldn't work out for the age and everything with Roswell, but that's very interesting.
That's the thing, because I feel like he wanted to write about a lot of this UFO conspiracy stuff, and you can't do that unless the character was old. How many old characters do we have? This is our list of old characters.
It could have been the world's oldest bellhop. It could have been. That would have been amazing.
That actually maybe would have been it.
You would have enjoyed.
I don't know.
Actually, you would have loved that if that's where he ended up at the end after being a Man in Black. He was.
It was fine. It just like, again, it's like a lot of people maybe don't even remember Douglas Milford, but for me it was like, what?
Yeah. Well, I know I didn't when I read it again read it for the first time. So all that stuff is very interesting. The other thing, like, obviously, if you've read this, you know how much this really focuses on UFOs and aliens, but we really didn't talk about it all that much, except kind of glancingly here. But it is such a huge, it's got to be a third of the book is really talking about all the different UFO sightings and how they all connect to each other. Like you mentioned, I really liked the extended passages with Nixon and Gleason and Milford going to see the gray. So we have at least two different alien races that they talk about. There's the giants, and then the Greys, and there's a passage about, I have it here somewhere, that Eisenhower was given the opportunity to get tech from the they call it the Nordic aliens, in exchange for giving up the nuclear weapons, but he turned that down, and the Greys offered them tech in exchange for some genetic material, and they accepted that. So, when we talk about the return later, just this connection where, the nuclear explosions opening the gates, to wherever this is, into the Black Lodge or lifting the veil between worlds. I think all of that's really important. And I do like that we see some of that here, even if it is just slightly there. But they do make mention, maybe there are several other races that are of aliens that are here, that they've been here forever, which is not a new thing to this story. Like there's a lot of that, like they've been watching us forever, influencing our history, that sort of thing. I liked connecting all that
it's like
together.
ancient alien kind of stuff. I am not that interested in aliens, and I think that's a big to-do, or UFOs.
That's going to be hard to suffer through a lot of this when that's so much of the story. Sure.
So a lot of that is that, and I get it. I mean, if you like that kind of thing, I think that's fascinating, and there was a part of my life, maybe when I would have been into it more, I'm just not that interested in it, so it's like, oh my God, we're still talking about UFOs.
Yeah.
And they do make connections to you talk about sightings. It's like Hank's dad is one of the people that sees one of the UFOs. And I feel like there's another connection to another person in town in the UFO. That's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah. There were two different records of the 18 or whatever it was that were tied right back to that.
I just don't want to think of UFOs, little gray men, Roswell, and Bob in the same heads. Like, I don't want to think of those things as being connected.
Right. That was the thing I had the biggest amount of trouble with the first time reading it through too. It's like, that's not where I wanted the mythology to be grounded in UFOs, but I don't mind it so much when you think of it as well, people are calling them UFOs or aliens, but that's not actually what they are.
Right.
That's just our way of That's just our way of trying to
Yes.
put some rational thing to it. They're beings from another world. Okay, sure, but they're interdimensional, cross-dimensional, whatever is spiritual. That's fine.
Even sticking with that, I don't like the idea of like a bunch of military guys having the man from another place like locked in a chair in some room with two-way glass, like trying to figure out what makes it tick or something.
Right.
You know, and it's like, again, it's that grounding it to the military and like, and there's a place for that. Like there's tons of shows. I like, speaking of shows, I'm watching Mad Men again.
Oh.
That's what a great show. And it is very exciting to be a Twin Peaks fan watching Mad Men because you're like, I just watched an episode. I'm like, Leslie Lincoln Gladder. Like, the directors are all Twin Peaks alumni. So it's very
That's
good.
nice. I mean, the other thing we didn't really touch on all that much is the Aleister Crowley and the Jack Parsons part of all of this and its connection to NASA and all of that. But there's just a couple small things there. The whole, religion that Crowley was starting that Parsons then took over, and he's talking to L. Ron Hubbard. And there's this Parsons does recite the magician longs to see portion of the poet, which I thought was kind of nice. It feels
because he has the ring. Yep.
Yeah. So, and there's that whole sex magic and all that's going on as well. So it does feel much more tied to the story that we know than some of these other pieces would be. And one small thing, we don't know how reliable we can take this book, but Pete died saving Audrey, which I thought was a nice way to like wrap up the Pete Martell story.
I take that as canon.
Yeah, I will love that. I think it's fantastic that they found his body protecting her. Is just a wonderful thing.
And the bank door as well, in addition to.
Right.
It's kind of like they give him this heroic thing and they're like, and then also the bank door blocked the bulk of the blast.
Well, but it did say that, but I was thinking it was the metal grate that she's handcuffed herself to, and that's not going to protect her from a whole lot. So I think Pete did a whole lot of the work there. So let's give Pete all the credit for it.
But the important thing is when you walk away, she's alive in some kind of condition.
Yes, which is really nice.
And Pete is not. Because unfortunately he was not alive in our world. But yeah, all the stuff with Crowley is cool, the Thelema religion, but also the L. Ron Hubbard stuff, and it's just cool. Like getting those like little was my favorite part of I talk about the UFO stuff I'm not as interested in. I am very interested in Aleister Crowley and the occult and Jack Parsons' story. All of that stuff I loved. So I would have taken a lot more of that and a lot less drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes and driving around and making people say that they didn't see a UFO.
All right. Well,
so
fair enough.
I did like that part. I like the L. Ron Hubbard stuff. How he took his wife and all of or his girlfriend, and which is true.
Stole all Parsons' money and bought a yacht.
And lived on a boat, and it makes me want to watch The Master again.
Fantastic. Okay, that's it. All right, cool. Sorry. So, closing thoughts. Overall, I think it is a great supplement to the story. I'm really, really interested. I cannot wait now to get into the return and see the connections here, obviously with the original series and Fire Walk with Me, but just adding all these pieces together where the context is much fresher in my mind and having you to bounce ideas off of, as opposed to being like, wow, that's neat. I don't know what that means. So this is a great way to set ourselves up for what's coming soon.
Yeah, so next on our show is the first episode, which is now part 1. Now we have to say part 1. Part 1 of The Return, which I cannot wait for. And we'll do that I guess you'll listen to this. Hopefully my dates are correct. I think the next Thursday is Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no show. Or that's no show for us.
I don't know.
We'll figure it out. We'll talk.
You cut
the
this
next
part
time you
out.
hear our voice, it'll be The Return. It's either in 1 week or it's in 2 weeks. But let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of the secret history of Twin Peaks and how you see it. It's no secret diary for me, but what is?
Oh, heck no.
But yeah, that's it. See ya. Peace. Thank you for listening to the Meanwhile podcast with Dan Johnson and Eric Grissom. If you would like to support the Meanwhile podcast, join our Patreon. It's available right now. You can sign up, and for just a few dollars a month, you can keep this show going, and you can get access to some exclusive podcasts and some secret stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else. So if you'd like to join, go to ericgrissom.com/meanwhile and look for the Patreon link. If you like our show, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're hearing this now. Meanwhile is produced by Eric Grissom and Where's My Robots? The Meanwhile theme song is written and performed by Paul Finn and Evening Pines. If you want to let us know what you thought of the show, you can reach Dan at danjnj.com, both on the web and on Blue Sky. Eric can be found on Blue Sky at ericgrissom.com, which is also his website. It's also me, right? That's weird. We'll see you again, and in the meantime, be good.
Listen to the sounds.
Meanwhile.